Ducks eat bread.
They do. They like it.
My name is Paul Vanderclay. I'm Freddie's pastor.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I want to introduce Freddie Schuler III.
Was good, really though. Go 49ers, Super Bowl. What's up, J-Lo? What's up, T. Grizzly? Doing it really big up in here. Hey, doing it really big up in here. Doing it really big up in here. Hey, one love. One love.
I want to introduce Freddie Schuler III.
Here we go.
I love Jesus Christ every way. I love to pray to him because he's A-OK. Number one, head honcho, like a poncho. But when I'm stepping up to the industry, all the ladies know me. By the way I walk, by the way I talk, I pop my collar, make that bottom dollar, make you holler and scream. We're Freddie D, that guy. He's Freddie. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. He loves Jesus Christ. Who's that guy? He's Freddie. He loves Jesus. That guy. I love Jesus Christ every way. I love Jesus. I love Jesus. I love Jesus Christ every way. By the way I walk, I love Jesus. By the way I talk, I love Jesus. One love to the brothers on 3rd Street, but they gotta open up the book and pray, cause you know I'm gonna make your day. Every time, every way, when I'm on a mic, like to play, stepping hard to the top, never gonna stop all of that hip-hop, rocking outside, people living and giving, staying on time of their lives that they're living. I'm Freddie B, and I'm down for the showbiz. All right, peace out, okay? One love.
This song is called Asynchronous Ontology for Dummies. Circles.
But I'm trying
Round it up.
to
Go.
learn the song.
There is no try. There's only do.
Well, I don't know about the meaning crisis. Left, right, black, white, or other vices. Which Jesus Christ is right, or if we're all saved. From my perspective, a proposition participate procedurally, running in circles, remembering body. We're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping them damn agriculture. Oh boy, holy cannoli. Alright, we're getting there.
You wrote the song, sir. Please, sir.
I wonder if, from my perspective, the proposition, participate procedurally, running in circles, remembering body. We're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping. Oh, shish kebab.
Shish kebab.
You know, tips of my fingers. They go. Not this one. Kind of go. Numb.
Here we go.
I don't know about the meaning crisis, left, right, black, white, or other vices, but Jesus Christ is right, forever I'll say. From my perspective, proposition, procedurally running, participate procedurally, running in circles, remember everybody, we're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping. And agricultors are whispering sweetly. We're all in pursuit, so need heavy of the beat. Red pill, blue pill, red pill, mushroom, venom tea. We're red and pill, got one and number two. We're all the same damn thing. So clean your room, repent on sin. Ontology for dummies, the bird's eye view. If you really knew, could you really say? Red pill. Oh. Yeah. All right. I think I should be done with that because my fingers are
All my
being
fingers and
bitches.
toes.
Straight up bitches.
Even the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. Even the fatherless is embraced by the Father. We're coming home, coming home. We're coming home, coming home. Even the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. Even the fatherless is embraced by the Father. We're coming home. They're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. The table is set. I will sit down, surrounded by friends and feast. The table is set. We will sit down, surrounded by friends and feast. Even the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. embraced by the Father. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. The table is set. We will sit down, surrounded by friends.
All right. This is the Friday morning in California, afternoon on the East Coast, evening in Europe. The poor Aussies and Kiwis are all asleep. Well, we do estuary, and estuary goes like this. We do a round of introductions. Then each person has the opportunity to pitch an idea to the group. And last week, I've done this before, but after the whole video gets posted, I like to post the pitches and the pointing rounds because it'll give you an idea about what's in the overall conversation. And then we'll go until about quarter to 12 my time, about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And then I will usually drop the link and we'll have open conversation for another half hour, 45 minutes or so. And that's the show. And today, and some people want to know, how do you get on the show? It's pretty simple. You become a member of the channel. Now, you don't necessarily have to pay for that. I don't know if I sent them all out last week or if I have any freebies left. No, I'm going to have to pay for them. But I'll do that. Let's see. How about we do this? I will. Yeah, it's going to cost me $30 to buy memberships for y'all. And here they come. So you can get a free membership on me. And that way next week, if I do it, because I'm a in real life pastor, what that means is that my weeks are uncertain. I don't know what calamity will befall the living stoners. And if no calamities befall them, and if I get my work done on time, then I get to play here on Friday morning like I'm doing right now, having an estuary meeting. Now, we do have estuary every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. here at Living Stones. There's going to be an estuary work day, March 14. So I'm pretty sure that's the date. So the evening of the 13th, the Friday night, we'll have a special estuary at Living Stones. And then if there's time and room during the day, Saturday, some might break off and do a special estuary meeting on Saturday. Then Sunday morning, we have our every week estuary here at Living Stones on Sunday morning. And so back to the membership thing. If you've become a member, then somewhere, usually if I decide I have time to do this on Friday, usually Wednesday or Thursday, I will put together a little sign-up sheet on a Google Doc, and I will release that just to there's this little thing, posts that sort of create little posts that come through your YouTube feed. And there'll be a link in there to the Google Doc. And the first 5 people that want to sign up get to sign up. And then they get to be on the show on Friday morning. And I will bring them in. And, well, let's see. We've got 2 fairly new faces. We've got 1 second-timer, but she made a big impression the first time. 2 second-timers, actually. Both made big impressions the first time. But let's start with Scott. He seems ready to go. Scott, welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. So my name is Scott Campbell. So I'm from Scotland, as you may be able to tell from the accent. I actually live in Livingston, Scotland, which is a nice coincidence. And I'm a merchant navy captain. So I'm a skipper at sea. So I'm going to be leaning heavily into your nautical metaphors of estuary this morning. But I'm actually in Germany at the moment, so we've been working in the Dutch sector. So if I drop in and out, it's the ship's internet. So that's me.
Wow, a real captain in this virtual flotilla. It's amazing. Yes. Instead of Captain Luke, who's coming up, who is a captain in the TLC flotilla, but I don't think having a YouTube channel and actually being responsible for a ship really compare. So sorry, Luke, I'm in the same boat. So How did you find us, Scott?
So actually, I was dimly aware of you before, but I never listened to the podcast. But then I actually physically sort of saw you at the ARC conference, and yeah, I've sort of been following you since then. I found it quite difficult to follow at times, to be honest. But I think it's as much a vocabulary thing as anything. But as I've tuned in, I've sort of realized that this TLC estuary thing is sort of speaking to something that I'm dealing with, sort of spiritually and also online. You speak about things like the Peterson-Pajot pipeline, which is a phenomena that I've been drawn through, and I would sort of describe myself. I wasn't really religious for most of my life, even though I was baptized Church of Scotland when I was a kid in Stornoway. My parents divorced. My mother was lapsed Catholic and sort of very anti-Catholic. So I had a lot of cousins who were involved in that, but we were sort of always outside. And then my father's side were sort of Presbyterians, quite ultra old school up in the islands. They're sort of like 50 years ago. So I'm sure as a Dutch person, you understand that. And then it sort of, I went through the sort of university as a sort of agnostic through all the sort of new atheism. Read Naomi Klein, whatever. Didn't really care much, but I had respect for religion. Then my father sort of is more of a sort of Gnostic, New Agey sort of guy. He actually married a Muslim woman when he went back to university after the divorce.
Wow.
And then I worked on cruise ships. And my brother sort of at this time went from, agnostic atheist to a sort of secular New Age Buddhist sort of thing. So we're all sort of like dissolved, vague respect, but no firm tradition, and very much open. And then I went to sea on cruise ships, and this is my American connection because I met my wife at sea, and she's from Long Island. She's Jewish. So we're just completing the sort of Abrahamic trifecta, but they were sort of just so kind to me, and the in-laws were great, and I had never met a Jewish person before, and they're very Long Island, Bronx, Queens, and they're Reformed Jewish, which the best way I can describe that is a sort of progressive, not secular, but basically Protestant Jews, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
But since then, I mean, we have 3 children, and then I got promoted to captain, and then you sort of have these responsibilities, and then it sort of becomes absurd not to understand these things, and you are a sort of theologian to your friends, your crew, your family, and that's just a fact. And so then you start to take it seriously, and then that's the time when sort of Jordan Peterson comes into your life. And then, we're having children, and then we have COVID, and we moved back to Scotland. And then COVID happened, and I got really, we had kind of a hard time for the first year or two. And then we had our 3rd child during a lockdown. It was pretty severe. Wow. And we had, I had a family member who died because the National Health Service sort of just decided we're going to stop your cancer treatment because we're scared we're going to get busy. And so I really turned to religion then. I say religion, but it was really Jesus, because to me there was this inversion of people who are sacrificing nothing are asking everyone else, not even asking, telling everyone else to sacrifice for something. and the inversion was so striking to me that it just became completely real and crystal to me then that this is just real. And from that moment, sort of, Jesus Christ became a fact of my existence, not anything else. And since then, everything else has sort of been a journey from that. And I started a Substack. It's called Captain Scotty, and I had a website, Yankee Jog, where I started writing these things because I felt very alone at the time, and I was just reaching for friends and reaching for something, and it sort of evolved. But now I'm in a situation where we're coming to my pitch, but
don't pitch yet.
No, but just to tell you where the context of where I am now is, I'm sort of through the pipeline, the Peterson-Pajot pipeline that you sort of talk about, but I'm like at the end, and I'm sort of stuck because now I'm coming out and I've got this complex family situation, complex work situation. I'm completely convinced, and what I'm convinced of is the Peterson sort of ethic in action thesis that he has. That performance is your ethic.
Yep.
And the sort of geometry that Pajot talks about, the geometry of this cosmology.
Yep.
I see that every day in my life, in my work, in my family. There is this real liturgy, and we have these secular liturgies at work, and we have we manage safety systems on ships. We do complex safety things. It's complete ritual and liturgy, but it's secular, and it's good for survival. It works. It's real. It's true, and it creates community. But it doesn't, because it's secular, because it's this industrial thing. There's no joy. There's no celebration. There's no life. And so I'm sort of stuck here now, where this is what I'm sort of searching for is this practical application, because for me, if I was 21 right now, going through this moment that we're going through, this sort of online change, this online reformation, I think you would call it, and I would probably go to an Orthodox church or a Catholic church right now and just immerse myself in it. But that's not my position. I'm 40 years old, and I'm not just an individual. I can't do things without bringing my wife with me and my children with me, my in-laws with,
Yep.
So that's where I'm stuck. And
all right,
and that's what I'm looking for.
You are not alone in that stuckness. That comes up because on one hand, you have to do the right thing as a father to your family, and on the other hand, you've been on this journey. So, well, welcome, Captain Scott. It's good to have you. We got a nice little mini rando in there. I really appreciate the other estuarians in the background who've been patient, and Greg, also quite new.
Hey, Paul, can you hear me?
Your name rings a bell. So either we've met or you've been on or something like that. So either of those things true.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you fine.
Okay, cool. We did a randos probably about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And I held it back. I just told you to hold it back, just because. I had to run it through some of my supervisors and stuff. But it's funny, you go from the captain to the C, from the major in the Air Force. So there you go. Now we got the C at the air and the C covered. And I used to be in the Army, so I guess that covers all of them. Just a little background. I'm serving in the United States. I'm an Air Guard member. I serve in the United States. Right now I'm on active duty for the United States Air Force. Was an Army for 12 years. I served as a chaplain in the military. So for the last 12 years, I've been a military chaplain.
Starting to ring a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. And military chaplain. The one thing me and you talked about, if you remember, was we had the same verse of Galatians that changed my life when I was 18, Galatians 5, 23, 24. And you reminded me it's on your Twitter handle. So, yeah, I serve and also own bookstores. So I serve as a guard. I'm a Georgia Guard member on active duty. So anything I say, a disclaimer is, not reflective of the United States military, Air Force, whatever, in case someone catches this. It's like, was that chaplain on? Yeah, so live in Central Georgia, Southern boy, 50 in my mid 50s.
Yep.
Well, just turned 56. Wife, 2 grown boys, 6 grandchildren, and I serve in the military.
All right.
And like I said, and I own bookstores. I own used bookstores.
Yep.
So
now I remember. Because it was a pretty unusual combination, the bookstores and the military, and I remember. So welcome.
Yeah, I've done a lot. So
thank you, Greg. Okay, let's see. Boy, I'm going to bring in Dawn next because it's been a little while, Dawn, since you've been on, but I think you had a tremendous appearance last time. So why don't you refresh us by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thanks, Paul. Nice to be back. I am a newly retired music teacher in Winnipeg, up here in Canada. I went through the Peterson-Pajot pipeline, as did many others, and Scott was telling us about that too. And my journey ended, insofar as you can say it has ended, in Orthodoxy. So I have converted to Orthodoxy about a year ago, and I'm still what I like to call on maybe my honeymoon, but I still consider myself a newlywed. So I'm still, the beauty, all the wonder. So, and it's wonderful. And I'm quite thrilled that it's a year and a bit in, and I still feel that way. So, so that's me in terms of why I'm here, because of course I have been part of this little corner right back. I think I mentioned before, I met you in Thunder Bay in 2019, 18 or something. And
Thunder Bay was 2022. It was after COVID because it got first canceled. Right. It was going to be September of 2020. And of course so September of 2022.
You're right. You are right. It's just all a fog now, right?
Yeah, it is. It really is.
There's BC before COVID.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's that. I am, mother of 4, and also was very lucky to be in England for 8 years. 4 years at Oxford while my husband did his PhD, and then 4 years at Cambridge while I did a PhD in philosophy of education. So music, philosophy. I'm also a podcast junkie from this little corner. So any name you drop, I could probably recognize it. And it's been such a privilege to be a fly on the wall with all the conversations in this little corner. And so that's gone, like I said in that little note I left you because of your post this morning, which is a lovely post on Substack. It has been wonderful to hear you in the midst and all the others too that have just helped us all on this journey towards faith and clarity. I mean, if not faith, at least clarity for many of us. So that's been a real privilege. And I'm just glad to be back today to talk some more.
Wonderful. I was so thrilled when I saw your name up on the sign up. I thought, oh, wonderful. We get to hear more from Dawn. So thank you so much, Dawn. And another second timer, but she's probably fresh in many of our minds, and her randos wasn't that long ago. So Teri, just a few words to remind us about who you are.
Hi, everybody. I was a long-term member of a religious science, new thought, metaphysical kind of church, got dropped into a Black biblical literalist church, and was overwhelmed by the power of praise. It made no logical sense to me, but I developed a need for it. And between that and meeting Peterson, I've been in that conversation ever since. So I'm in the tension of all those things.
Yeah. All right. I'm so glad you're here, Teri. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, and I saw Dawn was coming. I wasn't going to come till I saw Dawn was coming.
Yeah, no, you definitely had to come and meet Dawn. And for our regular this week, a man who needs no introduction, here with his coat of many colors, is the one and only Luke Thompson, the host of the Luke Stream. And you are muted, my friend. Tell us about the coat.
So this thing's awesome. First off, it's huge too. It's just like massive. It's like I've been looking for one of these for a long time. It's like it's got all this texture to it, all this depth. It's wool. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite pieces of clothing that I own, and it's new. And everyone's been calling it my coat of many colors. So
that's I think what first comes to mind. So the favorite son of the TLC is that you, Luke? Hope your brothers don't beat you up and throw you in a cistern.
Yes. Yeah.
And sell you to Midianites to slavery in Egypt. So
that joke
all
has been
right
made already too.
Well, we have succeeded in the first round with introductions. And we're going to proceed to the second round where each person gets a chance to pitch an idea to the group. And last week I played with the poll thing. Maybe I'll try that again. But Scott, what would you like to pitch today?
So, yeah, leaning into that nautical metaphor of estuary. So let's say the online Reformation is real, which it feels very real. Surely it contains hazards. So let's consider it like a ship. Are we getting too much into the ideas, the theology, the sort of disembodied, over-intellectual propositions and analysis and things like that because of the medium of the internet? We can see tribalism and all this happening. Is this, to use a metaphor, the same as overloading the ship top heavy? It's too high. You're putting all of your cargo on the uppermost deck, and there's not enough below. So when that happens on a ship, there's a risk of capsize. Okay, we balance that by using ballast, and it's the counterweight to these arguments that we have online and this oppositional, combative sort of thing that we're doing or is being done in public. Is that equivalent to overloading top heavy? And how do we have a counterweight of ballast? How do we make this contra in the right proportion? What's the liturgy? What's the real life things that we need to do to balance it? And I think this is the platform to ask that, because this is the only place I see on the internet where you're just inviting randos to come and speak to and have a real conversation, whereas online generally this doesn't happen.
That's right. Very good. Very good. Excellent pitch. Thank you, Scott. Greg, what would you like to pitch?
So one of my early seminary, and I gave you this quote in our rendo also, Paul, and I think you used it when you were talking to the guy, metagelical guy or whatever, a while back. In the 90s, I was in seminary at Columbia in Atlanta, and my professor was Shirley Guthrie. Wrote Christian Doctrine, and it was at a time, it was in the early 94, I want to say 93, 94. It was a time when liberation theology had really started to kick in. I was at a liberal seminary at the time. I grew up I was a mutt, but I was going to a conservative church, Pentecostal church at the time. So when I went to seminary, I went to the exact opposite. I went to a liberal seminary just to test my views. And so, but I was sitting in the class, and the liberal theologian stuff with Christian theology, and that's when everything was coming out. It was Black liberation theory, gender, gay liberation thought. Everything had a title, liberation, in front of it, right? And so it was one of those classes where the professor asked, was Jesus a communist? And 99% of the % raised their hand. Was he a capitalist? Nobody raised his hand, and I'm the one who didn't raise my hand. But because Jesus is neither. But it gets one. But anyway, we had something happen, and that happened at the university, nothing major, but Shirley Guthrie walked into a class, and he said, he was mad at the students. He walked in and he said, the problem with you people is you believe in love, justice, and peace, but you don't believe in a living God, and you don't know that you can't have one without the other. And he walked out the door. That was it. That was the class. Like, we were supposed to do a book class. He walked out. And so since that time, I've always been on this idea that that's true. You can't have one without the other. And it brings me to kind of today's stuff, because in the military, you've been talking about institutions, right? And so in institution, we're having that problem as well, because we have core values, like in the Air Force, it's integrity, service, and excellence, but they are disconnected from any kind of really real, as Vervecki would say, right? And so there's a problem. So when we go to talk when we go to talk with these things, there's any way to bring common unity, right? Because everybody thinks of their own. And so lately I've been doing, as a chaplain, our job is spiritual fitness and trying to bring back spiritual fitness when no one believes in the word spiritual. But hey, it's a challenge. So we go in, and I started using in talks the 3 B's by Vervecki, betrayal, boredom, and bullshit, right? And the place lights up. Everybody's like, hey, that's exactly where I'm at. And chaplain, you're putting words to my mouth. You know what I'm doing? So there's going to be a theme to this little pitch. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, but the answer is, and so I'm trying to teach them how integrity, service, and excellence and building a life of virtue handles the 3 B's, right? And so because it leads to depression, anxiety, all that stuff. But then I'm thinking in my mind that really the answer to the 3 B's is faith, hope, and love, right? Betrayal is lack of trust. Faith is trust. Boredom is lack of hope. Hope, God anchors our soul with hope. And then love, bullshit is the, it's the truth. I mean, it's trying to persuade someone without truth, right? And so love is the opposite. It's trying to persuade someone with truth. So faith, hope, and love, and I watched Vervecki, and his Mr. I've probably seen his type of things, and I see the disconnect. And then I go to the last one, be Lamb of the Free by Andrew Rivera. It's a great book, and one of the things he talks about is the fact that what happens that there's 3 sins that the temple could not, there's no sacrifice for, and that is sexual immorality, idolatry, and murder, which becomes economic oppression. And the prophets expand it to economic oppression as well. And so when he says that when the land gets polluted because there's no way to take that sacrifice out, God leaves. And the only way to clean that society is from God leaving, and then it has to be washed with water, and the land has to renew itself. And so as I think about those type of things, and I look at where we're at and what I think in Deuteronomy time, we're in the world, I'm leaving, I'm gone, right? I'm not going to be there. And so I feel like we're in that Deuteronomy time now, and I've been preaching through the minor prophets because I do chapel, and I keep seeing it over and over again. And I can't, as I'm looking at this, is I think we're in that time. We're in that time where so I guess my pitch and question is, what do we do if God's glory does leave, right? If he does leave his people, or he does leave our country or whatever. It does in every country. It's not just America, but everywhere. When God's glory leaves, and you can't connect one to the other, love, justice, and peace without the living God, all these type of things. What do we do as a people? And what do we do as a church? And are we in that time? I guess that's my pitch. Do people feel we're in that time, especially Christians?
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, Greg. Dawn, what would you like to pitch?
So I've been just immersed in stories and the idea of story and the overarching story. And of course, that's been a continuing theme for many years. Anybody in the Pajot Circle, King's North, McGilchrist, Zach Porkery, all these people who are talking about the story and how we embed ourselves in a story. And for Christians, of course, there's the greatest story and the overarching story. And there are many who are talking about the disintegration of the overarching story for Western civilization generally. And more specifically, Paul Kingsnorth's book came out about the machine against the machine, where he's talking about the disintegration of our story and what is replacing it, the lack of story. And then, of course, just released is Martin Shaw's The Liturgies of the Wild, which is a beautiful book, which he says is a companion or a response to Kingsnorth's sort of observation of the disintegration of our story. And he's talking about the importance of myth and story, and the greatest story in his case, because he's Christian, and how we can delve back into those stories, the great stories of all the ages, and the greatest story of Christianity, in particular for him. And if not, immerse ourselves in that, and with my own story, my own journey, I should say, from a very a home church, very Protestant, very restorationist, very sola scriptura, very Puritan-based, iconoclastic, the most extreme you can get on that end of the spectrum, and then ending up maybe 6 years after I started really thinking about it in orthodoxy, which is the other extreme. What appealed to me, I think, in orthodoxy, from compared to my old church, which had many beautiful things like its simplicity and its sincerity and the clarity of the fruit of the Spirit that you could see at work in people's lives. But even there were so many questions I had about the story that were not filled satisfactorily. So many words that I used, like angels, demons, the whole invisible world, maybe the angry father, or the righteous father, I should say, but actually creator of the whole cosmos, of everything in it, invisible and visible. And it's such a big story. My Protestant brain is still working out some parts of that story. But what I had to do when I got 98% of the way after 15 years of a long journey of trying to work it through, is this true, rationalize, complete, I should say, completely immersed and product of the culture we brought in, super rational, and Vervaeke's completely propositional rather than participatory. I felt like I needed to step into participation to get me that last 2% into real faith and into real belief and into complete immersion into a story, rather than racking my brain to try and figure out what was true, what was right, what was real. And then, of course, there's Pajot's discussion about, well, what is real? What is true? And that whole invisible world. Overarching story in which our meaning and our purposes are embedded. So in other words, what is the threshold for truth, whatever we decide that means, that is required of that overarching story that allows it to support a deep and sustaining community? And Paul, I'm hoping that that word community appeals to you too, because last time I was on, we talked about what makes a good, bad community, but then we had to talk about what is the good. How do you judge anything that's good community otherwise, unless you have an idea of the good and the good life towards which they are aimed, right? So I guess that is my
story and less intellectual approach.
All right. Very good. Yeah, that Jordan Hall's comments to Ross riled a bunch of feathers. And that's all part of this big debate over modernity. So now, as it turns out, I can only put up a poll of up to 4 things, Luke. So unfortunately, if people want to point to your pitch, they'll have to write it in the hive mind instead of hitting the poll button. So that's what you get for being the veteran here. I've given the newbies an advantage. So, Luke, what pitch you?
That's right. I don't even necessarily want mine to win. I'd probably rather talk about other stuff. Also, sorry, Teri, Chad was calling me in the middle of your pitch, distracting me. Chad, you know what I'm doing. Let's knock it off. Okay, my pitch I think is going to be kind of related. It would have been institutional collapse and the difference between information and meaning, which is very related to all this stuff. Like even because it actually has a lot to do with AI too, and conversations we've been having recently. But I essentially think to pull in all that stuff, like what Jordan Hall is talking about and realizing, and I think is true, is like modernity is over. It's 100%. You need all of it. You need all the truth in order to live it. Be holy as I am holy. Be perfect as I am perfect. And that will make no sense on a modernist framework. But for those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, you need all of it. That's my pitch.
All right, there's a Luke pitch. Surprising no one. Very, very Lukey pitch. All right.
Truth. I mean, we all have to. I don't think we all have to. I think for meaningful conversation to occur, we all have to agree that truth is possible and discoverable, even though none of us individually may actually discover the whole. So that's the first thing. Maybe is the question: do we need something of truth that we can confirm in however we want to confirm that, whether it's materially, scientifically, morally, logically, or to have something that can actually sustain a community in a profound way? Yeah, and I mean, yeah, whether that's even historically the case or whether, yeah, I think some people would argue both sides, and maybe that's a place to start. With just the idea of, can we determine truth, or can we at least, is it necessary at least to say that truth exists? I think it is, because otherwise, what basis do you have of conversation? But how much of truth do you need? And what, maybe throw it to Luke, what do you mean by when you say the whole truth? Like, what could that possibly be for a community?
Well, I'm gonna jump in here because I think it has a lot to do with modernity. Because when you look at what, especially Shaw and Peugeot are pointing to, and if you listen to the kickback that, let's say, the Universal History series gets, it's all about a certain conception of truth, which sort of connects fact and language. Let's say Luke, do you have a dog? Okay, Luke kicked the dog, so there's no dogs will be hurt in the story in the making of this illustration, because Luke does not have his dog. If we said Luke kicked the dog, that connects up with a moment in time when any public person, if he was doing it on the street, could see Luke kicking his dog, and that then became truth. Now, a big piece of this mythology, because if we're using the word story, which is a little ambiguous, but if we use mythology, people would sort of ease off the question, because when we say mythology, we're saying, well, we're not necessarily holding that story to a one-to-one relationship of like Luke kicking a dog, and it got captured in Minneapolis, and all the good people of Minneapolis rose up with their sign in defense of the dog. So what's happening now is there is a realization that just Luke kicked the dog isn't enough to build a community on, that you need a fuller story around it. And so I think some of the overreach is that it doesn't matter if Luke is real. It doesn't matter what he's wearing. It doesn't even matter if he has a dog. What's important is that Luke kicked the dog, and we're going to rise up and protest Luke, because even if he didn't have a dog and didn't kick it, kicking dogs is wrong. And so therefore we're going to build a community around it. And so part of what we're doing is reworking this, how modernity engaged and really engaged the story of the sacramental churches that had relics and story and all of these things. And a lot of them said, you've got too many pieces of the cross. As to go back to Greg's pitch, it's bullshit. That wasn't really a piece of the cross. And I might as well just look at a little wooden cross I make for myself and get nostalgic and have the feels from it. So, and now we're sort of like, we've been robbed of anything that attaches us to anything real and meaningful. And so we're saying, it doesn't matter if Luke doesn't have a dog. What matters is the solidarity we have in the streets of Minneapolis protesting Luke, that he kicked the dog he doesn't have. So
can I point out as well, I think to link to Greg there, is that part of this thing of modernity that people are realizing is that the view from nowhere is dying. And that's part of liberation theology, because liberation liberation is liberation from sin. People want to be liberated to pursue passions. So liberation is liberation ultimately from the fear of God. And so, that there's a desire to be liberated from limitation of truth. So to me, truth is relative and objective. You have both, and you have to sort of switch between both when you can. But it's there's a limitation there when you have a cosmology that says Jesus can exist outside of time, for example. Then that places a limit, and that is incompatible with liberation theology. And this is something that we see because this is something that I've taken from Pajot that I took really very seriously is his definition of love. So we say love all the time, love, love, love. What does that mean? And he has this definition where it's what permits chaos to cohere. So love is this element. It's the breath of life that turns dust into a human, and I think this is, to use a sci-fi sort of terminology, if we accept that the creator exists outside of time and space, then that means he created time and space at not a time, and he can uncreate it at any time. So it's something that soldiers learn, as Greg I'm sure is aware, is that you once they've been in combat or whatever, they can be killed at any time, and that never goes away from their brain. And to me, this is part of cosmology, is understanding that there is a limitation there by definition, that existence could end at any moment. And obviously we talk about facing death that way as well. But as part of the definition of a living God is that so long as we exist, then there is love. Like it's definitional because we cohere, because we exist, and I think that sort of cosmology is possible now because we've reached the sort of end of liberation theology. Because when you have the sort of the trans crisis and all these things where there's no borders, there's no institutions, everything's dissolved. You've been liberated from everything except reality, and so people have found limits again. If that makes any sense.
Well, liberation theology was the beginning of the "my truth is my truth," because that's really kind of what it boiled down to. It's like, well, you don't know what.
Completely relative.
Yeah, it's completely relative, and and that became the problem. And I think when I was sitting in that classroom, Shirley Guthrie had to be like 67 or 68, and you could see it on his face of someone who had grabbed hold of something and thought, "Hey, this is what I'm hanging my hat on," and realized when reality kind of hit where it was going, and you could see it on him. I think that's why he stormed out. It was all on his face, and so I think he realized, we're about to go way too far, and because we unhooked ourselves. So, but the thing about truth is, you cannot unhook it from beauty and good, the beautiful and the good. One of the things they talk about, I don't know if you've read The Ethics of Beauty by Timothy Pateas, and he talked about with PTSD, they don't need truth to set them free because they've seen the ugliness. What they need is beauty brought back into their life because they've read into malevolence. They've ran into the most ugliest thing. That really, when you take someone's life in combat, or you're in combat, and I was a combat chaplain, it makes you see reality in a completely different way. Like the evil, the most evil that a man can do to another man or a woman person, you see it in the flesh, and you then become a part of it. And so what I have been learning from him is the idea that in the Orthodox Church, if you were a soldier, it took you 3 years before you could take communion. They had to bring you back, and they had to rebuild you into a life of beauty, not a life of truth, because truth, they got the reality of truth, but bringing them back into beauty and giving them a life of goodness. So when we talk about truth, it cannot be, number one, it can't be unhooked from God. That's number one. But it can't be unhooked from goodness and beauty. And it has to go with, and that's together would be what, human flourishing. Truth has to be part of what comes human flourishing.
Now, Greg, I'd like to ask the Guthrie story.
Mm-hmm.
What was he reacting to in his students? What did he see that he reacted to so strongly?
So that weekend, there was a campus party, and it was a throwdown like any other secular party you've ever been to. Like, I wasn't there because I was married, and me and my wife were in the marriage thing, doing what we're supposed to do as a young, Christian couple. However, it came across the campus like quickly on a Monday, and this was a Monday, and about just kegs and beer in the hallway. This is the seminary that gave you James Kennedy. D. James Kennedy went to Columbia Theological Seminary because I guess it was Presbyterian on the other side. And so that event of the seminary looked exactly like a secular university for a whole, you know what I mean? Like, it hit home. And then it was because after that we would have these little wee discussions, and he would start talking more about we're supposed to be separate, holy, looking different, right? Having a different life. And if you can't separate you two, but you all want these things, you want love and you want joy, and you want beauty, you want justice, you want all these things, but you take away the living God, and there's just no way you're going to get there. And I think what happened is he saw that weekend is that Columbia Seminary looked like the University of Georgia on a football Sunday, right? Looked like a go down sorority row and fraternity, and that's what it was. And it was like, and no one thought, and not only that, there was when I say just beer, and I'm talking about the whole debauchery of college life at a seminary. And which I'm saying they're not all perfect. I'll go to seminary, we're all perfect. But just to see it to be so brazen is what got him. That's the way I got it, and because just the way he changed. And also with my papers, I could write a paper that was completely different, theological, whatever. He would write on there, and I got him at home. He'll say, "Thank you for this paper. You're a breath of fresh air. Sin means something to you." Things like that, because we were going through his Christian theology class. So that's what I was starting to see that. And then also from our little discussion from him, it was just, he was watching the outworking. He's in the real outworking of the theology that was being taught in the classroom. And I think he was like, it was kind of off.
I agree with Jordan Peterson. Truth is what you act on. Truth is what you embody. Truth is incarnate. It's not abstract. That's propositional tyranny, modernity stuff. So it's not your self-identity. It's how you act in the world. So if you say love and forgiveness is how you identify within Christian ethics and virtues, they're all one in God, because that's why Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." That's what he meant. He didn't give propositions because it wouldn't have mattered. He said, "I am the truth. And if you don't see that, there's nothing I can do for you." Like, that's just the way it is. And so, there's a lot of, it's one of the things that kept coming to mind, and this is George MacDonald, because I thought about this, because like, even I would say truth untethered from God, if there is such a thing, or if it just, which I don't really think there is, it becomes a bastardization. Because God is what coheres anything that is. But truth divorced from that is the power of power. Love is the generating force behind power. Power is always power for. Power for what? Like, it's a completely relative thing. And so love is the thing behind that. And you don't, and you can only ever know those things in general. Because if you ask someone to define love, or like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me. It's this. You're gonna find people floundering. They're gonna go to poetry or something because it's too big. It's too massive. You can only point to specifics. I love my wife. I love my kids. You can't You can't encapsulate a transcendent. That's why it's a transcendent. And so truth to me is you can't abstract it in some objective way. Again, that's the monarchical vision thing with modernity that's not real. So like I'll close with this. I always love how Jedediah Pascal talked about it, because all truth is relative, because it's contextual. That's the postmodern critique. It has to be, because it's always filtered through your interpretation, your perception. That's the difference between meaning and information. But it's not arbitrary, because it's embodied. We have the world, we have history, you can look around you and truth it's not arbitrary, but of course it's relative. It has to be. But relative and arbitrary are very different.
Don,
Truth has to define you. Truth has to define you. Just like you don't get to define love. Love defines you. That's why God's important. Like we can go around and run around with our love and our own truth and all that. We have to have something outside of ourselves that flows into us. So God has to be truth himself. And we have to let his love define us. We can't. Beauty defines beauty defines us. All these things come through us and flow out of us. So they have to come out in a porous participation, as JV says. So it has to come in and flow out. And so if you're not, only way you can get truth is by pursuing God. The only way you can get love is by going to the source. The only way you can get any of these things. So as Luke was talking, that's what I kept hearing him. I was like, we go around defining love. You don't get to. Love defines you. And so we all have to go to the source that defines all of us so we can have common unity.
Go ahead, Teri.
I completely agree with Greg and Luke about the goal of integrating truth, beauty, and goodness, and knowing that it comes from the divine beyond. But to be applicable to Paul's story about, did Luke kick the dog? Does it matter if Luke kicked the dog? Are we mad regardless of whether Luke kicked the dog? I think it's helpful to distinguish different kinds of truth. The truth of, did he kick the dog? And be able to say that may be true and it's different from the story. So pulling the two apart seems to helpful to me. And I kind of came to that after Luke recently is quoted as, there are no facts, there are no facts, there are no facts. But even Pajot says, well, there's a few little facts. Water does freeze at 32 degrees when you're on the planet Earth in the, da-da-da. I think that distinction is useful if we want to influence how people are reacting to the dog being kicked.
But even so this is coming from a chemist. Water freezes if you give it the exact amount of infinite constraints that you can even summarize if you had all the time in the world. Water freezes at 32 degrees.
It's all right there. And what struck me about Dawn's pitch was there were many good things about that house church, but what I understand about what happened through sort of the Pajot Orthodox thing is the expansion of the mythos, of the lived in story to a bigger frame that will include saint stories. And because what Protestantism tended to do was bring things down very simply, and you had God and a sinner and almost in complete isolation to the rest of the world. And Protestant does that powerfully. And that's
my point would be, but there must exist outside of your observation those actual either material objects or, in my case, non-material objects that we can just dismiss because we personally can't see them or realize them. So I'm just saying that in everything that I'm hearing from Luke and Greg, where it is that there can't be truth without God, or everything comes from God, or it's all relative, it's all subjective, there still has to be some acknowledgement that something or invisible thing or force or whatever it is exists objectively that we can then make our best subjective guess at, right? So even if it's like, I see this is my truth because it's how I see it with all the baggage that I bring to looking, we still have to acknowledge that there's something there to see that's not just in my imagination, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at, what I think I missed when Luke was talking about truth being subjective, I would frame it as our journey towards truth, our longing for truth, our attempt at observing or recognizing truth will always have a subjective element, but we have to believe that there is something there that's not us that we are moving towards. So I do think truth, however you want to define it, whether it's truth morally, truth symbolically, truth materially, concretely, still has to exist. And it cannot just be our subjective interpretation. There has to be something, even if it is subjective, that we're moving towards that's actually objective and exists whether or not we do. And that might be a thing in itself, because some people would claim that everything in the cosmos exists partly because we as consciousness and God bearers can observe it or perceive it. So that's another thing too. If we can't perceive it, does it exist? Right? The tree falling in the forest, that whole thing. So yes, Paul, I saw a bigger story, but more things that they acknowledged as true and existing, not as useful, what do they call that? Useful imagination or useful lies or useful prepositions. We say angels and demons, and it's useful to have these thank you, that's the term, useful fictions. And I think there's a real danger if we just focus on that everything is subjective and my truth is my truth, that we'll actually settle for useful fictions because we're not acknowledging that something there exists that is true, that maybe we don't fully grasp, but is true regardless of what we understand about it at this moment. So that's the only little tweak I would put in that. Yeah. If it's a little tweak, I don't know.
Oh man,
it's important.
I have a lot of. I'm trying to not hijack the conversation because I talk about this kind of stuff all the time and go really esoteric. But I really don't like the subjective objective thing. I think it's a completely false framing. Like I would say there's something true that exists, whether or not I can see it and articulate it and I'm aware of it propositionally, for sure. But even objectivism, it's belying a kind of material substance-based understanding of what is ontology. And really it's a kind of spiritualized materialism. That's what objectivism is, unless you want to root it in a person. So you could say truth exists, but for me, if truth exists, it exists in a person. That would be it would be within an angelic hierarchy. I don't think abstract truth exists like as ideas out there unless they're like persons, beings.
Can I just ask you then, just so I understand what you're saying? If I am an atheist and I firmly believe that God does not exist, why should he? I can explain everything in the material world. By your definition, then God doesn't exist because I don't or cannot believe in him. But wouldn't you say that God still exists whether I believe in him or not?
I would say God is outside of those categories. John Vervaeke talked about this. Like that's what non-theism, this is my priest, because I'm Orthodox too. My priest gave me articles from a British journal written in the 70s that said like purification by atheism. Non-theism predated theism, which was a belief in God. God is outside the categories of existence and non-existence.
Okay, can you take another example then of something that if I don't see it, I can't perceive it? Okay, sure. Are angels outside that category?
Yeah, but then that gets tough because a lot of our perceptions we so quickly map onto narratival structures. I think we're all seeing angels and demons all the time, but we don't think that way because we're colonized by materialism.
But you are speaking the great we. You're saying the great we actually see them, but we don't recognize them.
Well, that's because I think reality is one and God is one. So like we're all participating in the same reality or else we can't even talk to each other.
And if I don't accept that, and if I'm an atheist who doesn't accept your being part of your we, and I say, no, I'm not one of those people who sees angels all the time but don't recognize it. Or maybe I am, but who's going to prove that, right? Who's going to prove
There's no
that
proof.
Right. So if I don't I'm just coming back to this very simple question. If I don't believe it and I don't see it, does that mean it doesn't exist?
I would say.
I mean, if you stand in traffic with your back to cars, you don't see it, but you'll find out if it exists or not. I mean,
I would say you don't think you see it, but we're talking past each other. I would say, do you think we're all living in the same reality? I would ask them that, and I would say if they say no, then there's no way we can communicate.
Well, that's it. There is no way to communicate on that framework. Because if you're saying you have to accept, look at those comments, terrible. If you're so nice to meet you though, Luke, really. But if you're saying you, Dawn, have to accept my framework, that it's really there, but you just don't see it, and that we all are surrounded by these things that we don't see, I have to accept that as true, and that may just be your opinion.
No, I would not ever say that, because that's ideological colonization. I'm just telling you what I see. I'm planting seeds. You can accept them or not accept them. I mean, there's nothing I can do to make you believe them. But here, we lie to ourselves all the time. What do you actually believe, and what do I actually believe? I don't know. Watch what I do.
Yeah, but you are stating it as a proposition. You are stating it as...
That's the only way I can talk to you.
Not necessarily, because I could say, well, provisionally, I would like to posit this, but you're saying, no, that's the way we see the world. But you're speaking for everyone. And then if I push back and said, I don't see the world that way, how are we going to decide what is true? And you said, well, you don't have to accept what is true. And that is correct. I don't have to accept it, but then you get nowhere, right?
Sure.
So I'm just thinking, like,
valid.
even for the conversation to occur, we would have to accept certain premises. And one of those premises I'm hearing from you is that we would have to accept that everything is subjective. There's no objective thing outside of our perception. And if I don't accept that premise, I don't know how we could pursue that.
All right, let's continue on. That was a lot of fun. A lot of people have been waiting for someone to take Luke on some of his Lukeisms, but thank you, Dawn, and it was fun having it come from you. I want to give Teri and Greg and Scott a chance to get in on this too if they want to, or to sort of pivot if they care to. I think, what Luke and Dawn are arguing is sort of where the epistemic crisis is now, because the monarchical vision has been dethroned, that none of us have the view from nowhere, yet we all recognize that there is a public view. Steve Jobs wanted to deny his cancer and it killed him. That there is a reality there, but I think we are also at a point where we see that the narrowing of reality that was done in the materialist reductionist framework is also finished. And it's just harder and harder to maintain publicly. That plausibility structure has come to an end. And so part of why, and Peugeot has said this often, he said he never expected to get any traction in the kinds of things that he talked about. And then suddenly he did. And I think that's a recognition that both the reductionist, materialist epistemology was dissatisfying for people, and where you might be able to embrace the fact that you're a carbon creature who is going to die just short of the heat death of the universe. Nihilism will kill you quicker than that. So we're having this moment culturally where, and then there's, people like Michael Levin, what we've seen in Cog Sci. You can read Spencer Klavin's book about the power of perception, that, some really spooky physics seems to suggest perhaps that there is nothing without a perceiver. Well, who perceives the whole then? So you have all of these things floating around, and this then is getting manifested in individual people's lives. I think that's part of the Orthodox, the excitement around Orthodoxy right now. But yet, as Luke said, there's no convincing each other of this. But we knew that already. We already know that about human beings. It's really hard to convince a human being. And I'm really annoyed that Luke has colonized me on Signal lately, but I'll have my revenge at some point.
But I think this is what I'm sort of worried about, is the over intellectualizing things, which happens on this medium, even though we're all speaking English.
Amen.
You know, if Teri has a point, it's, you know, ceremonial lip service. Well, that's, you know, we're all using a common language technically, but when you talk about defining love and beauty and truth, we can use all the words under the sun. But if someone's holding your hand, then you don't have to have any words, but you can have knowledge without anything being spoken. And this is where, you know, smart people tend to extrapolate far too much. And this is my question, is what are the physical, practical things that we can do? Because I know for a fact that, you know, I really respect the Orthodox thing, because I think Don's question was such a Protestant question, because it's this question of what's the threshold for truth, for a story to be true? How much of it that's a minimalist question. What's the minimum evidence that I can use to justify the maximum story? You know, and the Orthodoxy is this maximalism that people sort of want. You know, it's that because we've had minimalism for so long, and it's you're starving in it. But you know, what's maximalism is like touch. But like I said, I'm 40 years old with 3 kids and a Jewish wife. I'm not going to go and start kissing pictures of saints tomorrow. I'm just not going to do that. But I might hold Don's hand or Teri's hand for it. You know what I mean? It's like a different thing. And
You
and
maybe
I think,
could. My kids were a little older when I converted.
yeah,
you don't
maybe,
have to.
but not tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, I made a little short this week because I had this conversation with Sam from New Zealand, and you know, one of the things that Sam said, he has this little video on truth, which is really very good too, and he just made the really startling observation that truth is the pleasure of seeing alignment, and in that he sort of weds truth and beauty and goodness sort of right there. But it's interesting that it's wed in this idea of pleasure, which of course gets into the very old question of why would God make a world? And I think probably one of the oldest answers is he makes it out of pleasure. And so when we discover truth, there is a pleasure that compels us. Now I know some people are going to see John Piper and the Westminster Shorter Confession and some of these things, but I think Sam was really onto something there, that what is compelling for human beings, and you can hear this in sort of Alex O'Connor's recent kind of more nihilistic ideas about, you know, how we appropriate truth, but as nobody can argue the fact that we as human beings find pleasure compelling, because we will do all sorts of self-destructive things in the name of pleasure. And what I really loved about Sam's observation was that truth, when we see it, alignment, he talked about, and when we see it in different places, symmetry, again, it's very close to beauty, but it evokes a pleasure out of us. And that's also very Augustinian.
Well, if I can real quick, Paul, because I got to run to go do an invocation. I agree with exactly what you said, because in your world, in my world, people come in, it's all about understanding. It's about planting seeds. It's about giving someone who is dying life type of thing. But I see one of the reasons that I believe what I believe and I hold to it so passionately is because I have seen the dead walk in my room, come into my office, who are living the reality that they hooked on, that boredom. They're either betrayed, boredom, or bullshit that led to their lives to being destroyed. They come in me looking for salvation. They don't walk in because I'm a chaplain in a pluralistic environment. So I don't come in, they come in. I don't preach Jesus. I have to just give them life. And so when you see someone go from dead to live, because you bring them, and this is the word, understanding, because truth, beauty, all that, it all comes together. That's what the Bible says. The fool cares not for understanding, but an error in their own opinions, right? And so it's this, I see it every day. I see the destruction of nihilism, atheism in these people's lives, and it's on their face. And when you give them hope, and it's really, you always hide it in. I mean, like, I can't preach Jesus, but I can preach the gospel, if you know what I mean. In a way, I have seen it. I've walked in rooms with people with guns to their head saying, if you don't talk to me, chaplain, and I see them come to life because I've seen what those 3 B's have done. Yeah. When you see that, all this talk of this BS about truth and objective and all that stuff, it goes out the door. It goes out the door. And it's just like, because you see it and it becomes a reality. And there's nothing more beautiful than that. And you see them change their life, and it's a long walk, and you got to go with them. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, I agree with all this about the internet's way too intellectual. And that's what I tell Alex Connor, get your ass off the internet and go work in a homeless shelter. Then come back and talk to me about God. Like, I see, he says, behold, I make all things new, and I beheld it so many times. And so if you want to see those things, start putting them into practice, embody, have, like, I love what Vervaeke says, have a dialogue with the Logos, right? And then you'll get imaginal. You'll get that image of the life that you're supposed to have. And then you pray that mindfulness. I say that you get wisdom, and from it you embody it. It's the same thing as Peter says, to your faith, add moral excellence, so you'll gain knowledge. It's all in there in Scripture. Vervaeke's just doing the Bible over again. But I'm just telling you, if you want to see it, I got to go. But if you want to see it, put it into practice and start planting seeds, and you'll see it, and you'll see God come to life, because He'll shine. His glory will shine through their lives. Sorry to get a little bit off that. My chaplain pastor came out, but
that's all right.
I got to get an invitation for a retiree. And so thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks for hopping in.
Amen, Pastor Greg.
Thank you.
Well, right. and Teri, your story is also compelling in that, and please, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was the beauty of, and I've seen this so often too, in the Caribbean, when you're looking at people that, according to almost any telling, people who they're stuck on a little island, they're desperately poor, they have no hope for the future, and when they come in, they are alive in that room, and there's a power there that is tremendously compelling.
Amen. Yes.
I
Praise
love
the Lord.
Part of your story. Yeah, I love that part of your story. Go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, those are beautiful stories. It is the story. So far, we've heard of the attractiveness and the beauty of the Christian story in action, right? Wonderful. Going back to what Scott was saying, I hear the point. Like, when you're up in your head and it's all intellectual, and, we're talking about degrees, minimalism of how much do I need to believe? Here's my question. In terms of that same sense of how much of the story needs to be true for it to sustain a community, do you think, Scott, not bringing in a whole lot of prepositions like, oh, if you believe this and if you believe that, do you think it's possible to just see and observe and perceive enough of what is true and good and beautiful to establish a community around that without any, how shall I say, without any sort of story that can be rationalized or preached? Do you think it's possible that there are ways of perceiving or understanding or learning that's not too rational, where you could have a story that's big enough to sustain a community, a really rich sustenance?
I mean, I think it is, but I guess the question is, I think it has to be action speaks louder than words. You know, like if I, like every Sunday, my Muslim stepmother comes and has lunch with her half Jewish grandchildren, and all of this Gaza, everything going on, we behave in a civilized way. You know, we share bread, and so actions speak louder than words. And I think this is one of the things that is so difficult with Islam and Judaism, because I'm never ever going to be able to verbally convince someone of that faith of the gospel of Jesus Christ, or even a Gnostic who thinks that, you know, Christianity is just the project of Paul, and you can't trust that. It's the reason that Jesus never says I am God is he shows us, and that's something that I really have started to think about so seriously, because that's the thing, not the propositions and the words. It's the action, and it's difficult to articulate because you can't articulate the completeness of action. You know, it's like the way I look at it on a ship is we can write all the procedures under the sun. We can write every risk assessment for a task, but you actually have to go to the deck, stand next to the person tying a rope to make sure that it's correct, because human beings are not. You know, and we talk about the good, the true, and the beautiful. I think these words are dangerous words, to be honest, because something that I just realized this year was there's a component of beauty that is order, and I never appreciated that before, and I understand it now. And the Peterson psychology thing that Paul was talking about was this. I don't know where I got it from. It's probably like Dawson's Creek or some cringe thing, but it is this idea that like you're supposed to act in a way where your inner self is aligned with your principles, so the inside and the outside should connect, if you know what I mean. And that's the pyramid, that's Jacob's ladder, that's the Christmas tree, that's all these things that we do, the up and the down. And the Royal Navy does this. There's a thing. You know, this is how I learned about evangelicalism recently. Was there was an admiral who did that? So there's maybe you know about it. Is Admiral Kempenfeld or something like that? And he instituted the divisional system in the Royal Navy because they kept having these mutinies back in the 1750s, and he realized it was because the highest ranking officers didn't care about the lowest ranking people, so they would just punish them and do these brutal punishments and sort of whip people to death for minor infringements. And what he did was a sort of pastoral system where every enlisted man was assigned they call it a divisional officer. So he instituted a sort of mosaic hierarchy, you know, the leaders of tens, 50s, thousands. And leadership then is not a privilege, it's a responsibility. So that divisional officer, even if he knows that the sailor was guilty, like let's say, or you know, he was late for his duty because he was drunk, whether he agrees or not, it's that person's pastoral duty to defend that sailor to the higher rank, sort of thing. And that system is really missing now. And this advocacy in between. So we have these, you know, and we have people like Jordan Peterson who talk about this. He's an anomaly because he's a psychologist, and psychology is boredom and bullshit, to be honest. But he's an anomaly because it's this embodied thing that he talks about. There's an embodied ethic, and that's what shows you order. That's what shows the alignment. And the order and the alignment gives us pleasure because it's aligned, not because it's pleasurable.
Yeah, well, it's pleasurable because it's aligned. It's we long for the completion. We long for it.
Right, and so like when you have a family dinner, a family meal that's beautiful, that is order and that is beauty, and it's temporal and it's communal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's how you can have a Jew, Muslim, atheist, Christian, everyone sitting around the same table. That's literally it. I mean, that's and we don't have enough of that because that's what I think modernity, the minimalism does, is it you've got all the guilt, you've got the confession, you have the legalism, you have the appeals and the redress, and you have all these mechanisms, but you don't have celebration, you don't have we talk about communion and community and all that. That's joy, that's celebration, and that's that's the thing about you're asking. I think your question to me is, can this be a big system? And it's like, well, not if you don't do it. Do you know what I mean?
I could totally agree with all that. But I mean, even Greg's beautiful description there of just do the thing and people will see the beauty, all that assumes the bigger story. All of that assumes the Christian arc, his story particularly. You will see the beauty of Christ. Now, we'll all go amen because most of us here can see the beauty of Christ. And we accept that story as an overarching story, right? But for you, even, Scott, I'm thinking, even for you, what would have to be appealing enough or true enough about a particular story, even if there is one, whether it's Orthodoxy or Judaism or Islam or whatever, for you to say, I want to step into this story, unless you already have a story, maybe you have the Christian story. What can I step into for that story? How much of it has to be true or appealing or make you feel good? You know what I'm saying? That kind of seems to be the situation you're in, is like, what is going to be the story that I step into if it's not just the one that I made up myself or something? Yeah. I
mean, I think it is the real question then, can I change the story for someone else?
Well, even for yourself, like, would you say your overarching story is one that you're satisfied with and can sustain you? Or do you feel like you're still looking for that place where you can commit more to that particular story, unless you have that story yourself?
No, I mean, I think I'm definitely in it and trying to grow it. And I don't want to be there alone.
Mm.
But I don't. This is another problem of modernity, is this systems thinking, because we want guarantees, and there aren't any. And like, it's like you go to work, but you have to work before you get paid. You know. So I don't like. I think one of the troubles that we get into with this online thing, because I think we sort of take on what's around us, like when I'm on wooden ships or fiberglass ships, like you feel a certain way, and then you come on a steel ship and your body gets stiffer. And I think the medium of the online world is it's very binary, and you find people like, what's that guy called? Who's that Orthodox guy who's like always arguing with people all the time?
Jay
Dyer, yeah.
And it's a performative contradiction. Because you can't, you can't claim to be something that's you can't claim to have the unifying story that will unite humanity by going online and like owning people all the time and like arguing with everyone. It's a performative contradiction, and that's not beautiful, and it's not good.
Well, I love to quote Brad Jerzak always said, people like that he said they're Eastern Rite evangelicals. They're Eastern Rite Protestants. That's people that do that kind of thing.
I think some of this also, this modernity tends to be a very urban context, and the thing that separates, let's say, urbanity from even a ship's captain. You might be living in a ship, but the sea is governing your existence. And you have to know depths, you have to know storms, you have to know all of these things. And a lot of our modernity is the product of walls and roofs and ceilings, where we get very disembodied and disconnected. We are connected to other people, but then other people then often become sort of the source of our difficulty. And I often think about the fact that it's really hard to argue about reality if you have 30-foot swells and you're not in a terribly seaworthy craft. And just look at Jesus and his disciples on the Sea of Galilee in the storm. And these are many of them have been on that. They go on that sea every day, and they know storms, and they know all of this, and they're scared out of their mind, and they're not panicking because they don't understand. No, they're terrified because they do understand. And then he stills the storm. So, part of what this world is that we're dealing with is our continual sort of removal from our vulnerability to the natural realm. And I think for that reason, when Greg tells his story, and what I see in pastoral ministry often at funerals, when people are confronted with death, which is sort of the final frontier with respect to our tussle with nature, things sober up. And a lot of this ticky-tacky bickering, not all of it, not always, goes away because there is a hush. We are hushed by a reality that is beyond us. Teri, you haven't had too much of a chance to say. We got a lot of talkers in here. I want to hear more from you. What's on your
I'm
mind?
fine. I'm into integral theory, and so I have a specific definition of truth, beauty, and goodness, and I've been kind of tracking that as we go. It's fun for me.
Okay.
And
you could
and
bring
Scott,
it in.
And Scott, I want to say that I really appreciated what you said at the very beginning about the top-heavy ship. I'm going to take away that idea.
Yeah.
And were we doing that? And that was also one of the things that was keeping me a little quiet, because the only thing worth saying is something that has to do with how God and love is the source of truth, beauty, and goodness. And I don't know how to say that, so I'll shut up.
Well, I loved your pitch too, Scott, because, and again, what I really loved about your pitch was, everything that Luke talks about, and that in terms of you could be a philosopher on a ship, and if there's a storm at sea, and there's these wonderful stories in the Bible of ships. You have Jonah, you have Paul in the shipwreck, you have Jesus and the disciples in a boat in the Galilee. And so many of us have, in a very blessed way, been tremendously disconnected from what the vast majority of human beings have actually had to grapple with their entire lives.
Yeah, but there's a point of I agree with all that. Like at some point all the talking needs to be lived, and it's real. There's cases where you can make that point very clear. But then there is a value in talking about things. Like a lot of practically what's going on in the world right now. This is why we talk about pluralism and multiculturalism, is because people who come from actually different value sets can't talk to each other and don't know how to bridge the gap. So learning how to talk to people across lines is actually a valuable thing.
And materialism was supposed to fix that. Because we're supposed to be able to, because we were supposed to be able to construct in a foundational way a shared reality based on Newtonian mechanics, and it didn't work. I want to highlight something. Of course, DG and Risto have been going back and forth, and I keep my eye on it. But he was talking about Alex O'Connor and some of the time he'd spent with him, and this doesn't surprise me either. But it impinges directly on this. So you've got Alex O'Connor. He's got a degree from Oxford. He's very smart. He's well educated. He's got degrees in, he studied theology and philosophy, and it's been fun watching his journey. And at least according to Nathan says, he's complaining about how many YouTubers he met and the emptiness of their lives, and hinted that he wanted to be able to encourage something real and more positive. Does that surprise me at all? Not at all. Because of everything that I've seen just pastoring a small local church. We are awash. This gets back to Scott's pitch. We are awash, and Greg's pitch. We are awash in information and bullshit. And you just get tired. And that's on both sides of the political divide. That, and they just had this, of course, this big scandal about a conservative couple of conservative people on social media hooking up and having an affair and yada, yada, yada. And this is old as creation. And people are hungering for something real. And I look at Jordan Hall's, I look at Jordan Hall's life, though, his story, which is, he had a list of like 15 places around the world that were cutting edge and yada, yada, yada. And he winds up in a place that anyone would least expect to find what he was looking for, which is backwoods, not really backwoods, but rural evangelicals in the North Carolina hills. And why? Because what did he see there? Wholesomeness. And when you listen to Scott's story about his Muslim mother-in-law and his Jewish wife and his children, and they're all in the home, that alignment. Whenever my children come home now, I just have this sense of, and my wife articulates it more than I do, but I just, they're all here. And you read that in the parable of the prodigal son. The older brother's like really pissed off, and rightfully so, at his younger brother. And the father's like, I don't give a fig. Our son was lost and he's found. I'm going to kill the fattened calf. And I'd love for you to join us. All right, maybe closing comments then. Scott, I'll give you the first closing comment. Scott, thank you for joining us. I'm glad you got a link, and I'm glad you could make this work with your schedule. And, I'm really glad that you shared some of your life with us, because, when I look at, okay, now you're a sea captain and you've got children, and and you're trying to figure out worship and church and rhythms. And I just think, oh gosh, what a hard thing to figure out. I was listening to Ross Bird talk to Jordan Hall, and Ross, I loved the candor, because on one hand, you read Ross's parish manifesto, and it's all the, let's live in the village. None of us live in a village. So Ross goes to the multi-sites, pastor on a screen, and he feels the tension in his family, but he's like, it's what I got to do now. And so let's not be too judgy. And I listen to Scott's story, and I think, and we all deal with all of those realities in real life. You can dream of an Orthodox church or a house church or whatever kind of church you dream of. Until it takes on flesh, we're always striving. We still haven't found what we're looking for, to quote you too. So sorry, Scott, I preempted your. If you have any closing thoughts,
that's good.
The stage is yours.
No, I do. I think one of the things that I've enjoyed this conversation, but it's interesting that the sort of liberation theory comes up, because that's this. I really feel that now people want to be liberated from reality, and it's awful. And my life has been a rejection of that. But I've been very in nature and all that, as you've seen. But the thing that I've learned from that is the only thing that works is to be needed. And if you want to be so free that nobody needs you, then just don't exist. And that's the trajectory of liberation. And with American friends and stuff, it's all this liberty, freedom, and then you go there and you have this massive bureaucracy and DMV and all this postal. It's ridiculous, but it's freedom. But then when you read the Declaration of Independence, what they talk about, they wanted to be free of a king who failed to provide local laws, and that's really different, and that's not part of the story today, but that's right there written in your thing. And this is why I think that the libertarian thing is ending, because once you're free of everything, then there's just non-existence, and human beings can't live that way because we exist.
Yeah.
I mean, if that makes sense.
Yep. Freedom's
Yeah,
just another word for nothing left to lose.
Yeah, be needed. That's the thing. Be needed.
Amen. Amen. All right, Dawn. Final comments. Final thoughts.
Yeah, that's lovely, Scott. Yeah, I see that everywhere. The idea of free to be not needed, and therefore despair and nihilism and meaninglessness for men and women, both. So my last words about, well, I'm really glad to have been a part of this conversation. It was juicy. So I really appreciate talking to all of you and all your thoughts that came in there. Something I'll still be thinking about probably, about the idea. Some of the things that you've said, I think really help clarify a little bit. Maybe along the lines of what Scott was talking about, the idea that sometimes the level of so-called truth might be determined by an understanding of what truth is. And if in the Christian understanding that larger story is evident, when we say truth, goodness, and beauty, we're talking about the same thing, right? Hopefully. Then maybe, yes, it can be manifested and it can be sustaining without the members having to have too much concern with what is true. And I do really like what Greg said too, that the truth cannot be disengaged from what is good and beautiful. And I also take the warning that there's beautiful for pleasure, and then there's beautiful for satisfaction and meaning and purpose, and they're not all the same thing. So lots to think about. And again, in terms of what all those things mean, and grateful that there is maybe some consensus amongst us that the Christian story is such a story and has been proven for 2,000 years to be a big enough story, even if I can't understand all of it. So I'm very glad to just be reassured again that the goodness, truth, and beauty is there for me to discover, and it's just an ongoing process. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. Teri, closing thoughts.
Agree that it's a great conversation and happy to be here. On being needed, my broken record will be yes, yes. How can we find our place in our truly being needed right role and avoid the past situation of being coerced into staying there? How can we have both of those? The freedom to choose to be needed. That's the tough one.
All right. Thank you, Teri. Luke, final closing word until I drop the link so people can start coming in if they want to.
Yeah. So it's been good. I've appreciated it. I will apologize to Dawn if I was speaking too strongly earlier. I'm a very passionate person, so it can come across as yeah. But yeah, I don't want to be a colonizer. So I'll probably close with, I love this Rilke quote, which is the point is to live everything. So even riffing on kind of what Scott said, and I think that's like one of the most condensed, super coiled DNA ways of talking about like Christianity, the incarnation. The point is to live everything.
Yeah.
And if ideas in the ballast of your ship, like if ideas, because there's tons of people, I say like the intellect isn't a virtue, you know? So like being smart isn't a virtue. If talking about ideas isn't helping you to live better, you should probably stop doing it. If it is helping you to live better, great. Like there's nothing, that's why I say you can be right and be wrong, or be wrong and be right. So I'll get a Coogee strut, skank. I'll put it back on. All right, I'm done. This is because it's a Coogee sweater.
Oh, well, is that a brand or a type?
It is. It's like an 80s, 90s thing. You know, like Notorious B.I.G.
No, I don't know. I'm an old man. I was busy being a parent in the 90s.
Look
I was sitting with little kids.
All right.
Look at my wife. My wife took the computer, so I have to use headphones, and now I'm just a jarbled mess.
Strut it, Luke.
Well, we have nobody jumping in. I think a lot of our people, our regulars who are usually the jump inners, they got frustrated by the recording. I will check the recording of this, and I should be able to download a clean version of this, and then I will upload that clean version, and I will upload the sound from that into the audio only stream, and so that people will get a chance to listen. I'm pretty sure that the problem was between StreamYard and who StreamYard was sending things, because I can watch behind the live stream on the YouTube channel here, and it was glitching in and out. So I'm pretty sure that's where the problem was. But so I want to thank you all for participating today. Up. One boy's coming in. Hopefully she has a stable connection. I need to see your face before I can put you in. If you can do that.
One boy, come straighten us out. One boy's legit.
I'll take the risk. One boy, can you say anything, or maybe because I?
Sorry.
Okay. What do you have to
Hi,
say?
one boy.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep, hear you fine.
I'm just gonna be quick. Oh, can you not hear me?
It's in and out.
We'll be quiet.
Sorry, I never have good. But I just wanted to say, in case it wasn't caught in the chat, that this. Oh God, this is. Okay, never mind. But I had some things in the chat, and I just wanted to reiterate.
Okay, there will be. It takes YouTube about 12 hours to digest a live stream, and then you can go back and see the chat. But it isn't immediately available on YouTube.
Yeah, I can hear my echoing. It's a nightmare. Anyway.
It's good to see you, one boy. T, you were in last week. What say you about today's conversation?
Okay, let me first fix the issue. There we go. Making sure the technical issues are good. Okay, I can hear you and you can hear me?
Yep, sounds
okay,
good.
All right. Hi. Almost forget what I was going to say. Don, you really caught my attention. A lot of times I can't remember the exact words, but educator, did you say you're an educator? Because that really interested me. I've been trying to figure out. I use words very specifically. If you get to know me, you'll know that. And so, like, I made a glossary and stuff. But with education, I use like the word training, and then like brainwashing is obviously bad. And so, I don't know, just some kind of conversation starter like that. If you guys are looking for those.
Well, brainwashing is an interesting. That sort of. I don't know. It seemed to be something that sort of caught on in the 60s and 70s of sort of a mimetic, brainwashing. And it's basically colonizing. It's basically reprogramming someone along a particular line. But that's really what education is. The question is, are you educating people into truth?
Luke has something to say.
Luke?
No, education is about teaching people how to think, not teaching them what to think.
Oh boy.
So well, here's the conversation starter, right? Because what I've been over years, like smartness, intelligence used to be a very big thing to me. Nowadays, I think there are different kinds of intelligence, but it's still a mystery to me. I don't think I know a lot about it, but it's a good thing to explore. I think it's kind of about being useful to society. And so there are a lot of different ways of that. I'm a very numbers-oriented fella, very scientific thinking, but I've been trying to learn this thing called symbolic thinking, right? The Pageau and perhaps other people talk about similar things. Maybe you use the word poetic or maybe other things. And so people are different, but we can still come together in community, and that ends up working better. So I've been trying to learn community lessons. But yeah, I feel like I just met you, Don, but you've caught my attention very much. So, if you have anything to say about education and how to do that better.
Well, what do you have to say about education, Don?
Well, I would have to say that is another big question. And I don't know if you're leaving, Teri, but I wanted to say hi, Teri. I didn't get to. Great to see you again. I was muted last when he was doing introductions. So anyway, it's great to see you and talk to you. It's a huge question because what we don't do enough of today, and I'm going to make this real quick because I don't want to start the conversation here. But when we talk about education, what we no longer ask is, what is education? Because if you're talking about education as well, we want to see this person grow or go towards something. Once you're talking about going from here, where you are, to there, where you want to be, you have to talk about, well, in what sense is this going to make you better? Better. What does better mean? Unless you talk about what is good. What does good mean? Unless you talk about the good person, the good life, right? The story, what have you. So traditionally, yes, education has been taking our youngest generation from where they're born to either integrating them into what we believe is the good as a large group, or what we as parents think is good. But there's that whole discussion that would have to start, because just in the 3 sentences that you said about about education, I heard intellectual development, I heard, what was the other thing? Schools. I heard, and these are all assumptions that we make about what education is, but it is different things to different people. But you have to start with, what does it mean to move someone towards the good life and towards being the good person? And are we educating for virtue? Are we educating for wisdom? Are we educating for knowledge? Are we educating for citizenship? All of the above. And then you go, oh, this is a bigger conversation. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, 100%. Because anytime you take information and you contextualize it, it turns into meaning. Contextualized information is meaning. And anytime you're educating, you're educating in a place with certain people, with certain constraints that aren't over here. And that's the context for it. There isn't like universal education. It's like universal liberalism or something. Like, it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And there's no such thing as blank slate, really. There's always that combination of what your natural inclinations are and what your nurture is, what you've been. So it's a huge question. And thanks for asking that. But that's probably a whole big conversation in itself to start from square one.
That's a pitch.
Actually, Dawn, I would love to reach out to you and talk to you about that, because education is one of my, seriously, it's one of my favorite subjects. Like,
Excellent.
I went to a local lyceum movement on education. No one ever talked about what education is. Not one time. In the whole conversation, I was like ripping my hair out. I was so frustrated.
Yeah. Even though they're talking, even though they're calling it a lyceum. I mean, even though they're talking in Socratic terms. And yeah, great, Luke. We'll do that.
Well,
and whoever
just
else.
be warned, Don, that Luke wants to talk to about 10 times more people than he actually can manage to arrange his life around. So just understand that.
That's okay. That's okay. Good
But
intention.
hopefully it'll happen, because I'll definitely want to watch that one. So.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're about done. Great stream today. Thank you, T. Thank you, Womboy. I hope you can, whether you're in Kenya or wherever you're at, or Uganda. Is it Kenya or Uganda? I think it's Kenya. Hope you can get a good internet connection. And thank everyone for joining us. Sorry for the hiccups. I will check again after this. I'm going to check back over, see what YouTube has, how disruptive it is. And if it's all disrupted, I'm going to post the copy. Hopefully I have a good copy. So, all right. Any branding requests before I just pick something myself?
I just want to wish Scott all the best, because I hear you and it's such a difficult thing. And having gone through a 15-year journey towards finding a little place, I totally hear you. So I'm wishing you all the best in that. And Luke, thanks so much. It's so nice to have a meat and potatoes conversation there.
Yeah.
So that's great. That is great. And yeah, and thank you, Paul, for putting this all together. It's always such a pleasure to watch and also to just be part of your conversations. So
absolutely. Maybe I'll start with Mark S.'s hymn that he wrote, because I love that little hymn. That's a great little hymn. Here we go.
You heard your neighbor go about Jesus. They claim their life is renewed. your hat before them and wonder about it, 'cause surely that isn't for you. Well, what does it mean, and where does life lead, and what they say, could it be true? Well, open your mind, my friend, you may find that Jesus is calling you too. We hear explanations, we try to be patient, opinions the world doesn't lack. They say he's the way, have faith and be safe. It's almost as simple as that. You look for a sign, well, this is the time. The answers have come into view. He'll wipe all your tears and cancel your fears. Well, Jesus is calling you to a strong hesitation for great invitation, a feeling we've all felt ourselves. And now we are gathered at life-giving water. It overflows out of the well. Well, he is the man and he has a plan. You're wondering what you should do. I tell you, arise, repent, be baptized, for Jesus is calling you to. Though life won't be perfect, few things will be certain. We follow with all of our hearts. We walk in the light, we can see with our eyes. We understand only in part. We pick up our cross, we don't count our loss. What else is there left to do? The way it is right, his burden is light. Yes, Jesus is calling you to. We all know there's something that's wrong with existence. The nations are warring with blame. But what if I told you a good guy, he loves you, but sin, it has kept us away. There's got to be more, and you can be sure eternity time flies into. But as your days in, you'll still have a friend when Jesus is calling you to. And when your days in, you'll still have a friend when Jesus is calling you to.
So, and I asked it, I thought, oh yeah, let's have Roger come in. I haven't talked to Roger for a while. And so what a crazy
Yeah,
day.
I'm glad that you remember me after all this time. It's reassuring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Okay.
I hear you just fine.
Okay.
I wanted.
Yeah, I suppose I've just come in right at the very end. You know, when you're about to wrap up, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't already wrapped up.
No, but I did wrap up, but I can unwrap for a minute. I haven't closed the stream, so give us your
Am I the only one on board apart from you?
Scott's still in the backstage, but he's turned off his camera, so he's probably done too. So this is Scott's still there. So go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I just caught the kind of tail end of the conversation when people were just kind of summing up. I was on my way back from a church meeting about the role and the very significant role that grandparents have to play in the lives of their grandchildren, you know, and which is an interesting topic in itself, but it kind of chimes with what I've been thinking about and what I think it was Scott who was talking about. The importance for our psychology of feeling that we are needed somewhere, and and the kind of theme of superfluity, you know, as it's reflected in so much of contemporary literature, you know, the kind of autonomous hero who is sometimes a very lonely person and doesn't really make connections, you know, with anybody, but he's kind of represented in fiction as a hero, but he's actually quite the opposite because he's not contributing anything significant to the communities that he's a part of, so that theme of and loneliness, what makes a lonely person lonely is not the fact of being alone, it's feeling not needed or feeling superfluous or feeling that they don't really have anything more to offer. And this, I suppose, this is particularly applies particularly to aging. People as they age find themselves increasingly kind of excluded from what is considered to be valuable contribution, to community, and that's why retirement can be so traumatic for some people, and grandparents who are distant emotionally or physically from their grandchildren, if they have any grandchildren at all, can feel that they no longer are contributing anything to the up and coming generation. So yeah, all of this is kind of blending, coming together in my thinking. And I thought that what you were saying in the summing up, I think what Scott was saying, is Scott, am I right in thinking, was it you who was speaking with a Scottish accent? Yeah, or yeah, so
aye, that was me.
Aye, that was you. Okay, so Scott by name and Scott by nationality. Yeah, so yeah.
That's
so
my blog. My blog was originally called Yankee Jock because I was straddling the American Scottish divide, but they just think it's underwear, so they. I had to rebrand as Captain Scotty.
But I did find what you were saying, the content as well as the accent, which I found compelling as well. But the content was, it got me thinking about all of these.
It's true, mate. It's true, and I think I see obviously I have multiple sets of grandparents for my children, and because my parents divorced, and you get extras. And you see the benefit in a way, and it's one of these things that good can come from bad in that sense,
Yeah,
and I think the danger, I think, as well, is for young people like my age, when you're a professional, especially in America, where they put the children in daycare so young, that there's a pridefulness of, I shouldn't have to need my parents, and there's a sort of, there's like an internal thing as well from like grandparents who sort of, well, we've planned this retirement, we're going to be off adventuring here and there, and it's, that's just meaningless entertainment in a way.
Yeah.
But if they don't make the effort to come hang out with the grandkids once a year, then what's the point of life? And this is the thing. This is the danger in society now, with people not having children and stuff. It's all pride. I mean, there's economics, but there's the economics of, I'm too proud to be poor for a few years.
Yeah,
as well.
And there's a price. There's a price to pay later in life, which because all of this is emotional investment, and if you're only investing in yourself in a very material sense to acquire experiences or to acquire, it ends up not being very fulfilling. It's relationship that fulfills.
Well, it used to be as well. There's phases, and like I remember when I first started going to pubs, I was like 16, trying to get into the pub, and go to the pub where your grandfather is, so he can buy you a beer, and then that's sort of gone now.
Grandparents are often excluded by no decision of their own, or sometimes by their own choice, but
this is how fragile we are now, because we're like we've got family in the States, family in Australia, family in Pakistan, family in France, like scattered to the wind. But we grew up together. We had 20 cousins in the same street, like not really, but within half an hour. And and we've become more American in that way. Since the globalist corporation model has sort of taken over, and I work internationally, so this sort of lack of a center is killing everyone, the old and the young, because then you have 3 young children and you don't have a grandparent to come and hold the baby while your wife vacuums the floor for half an hour. It's a prison for everyone, young and old,
Yeah, and it's hard to see how we're ever going to be able to move back from that.
Well, I think I'm lucky. I'm 40, and my wife and I we're very conscious of this, and we've decided our retirement. Our plan is to take a year off when we turn 50, so that we get a bit of wanderlust out of our system while we still have life, and our children don't yet have children, so that when they do have children, and I'll probably have arthritis and all sorts by then, so I don't want to travel so much then anyway, and so that's our sort of planning in it. So I think, but to be conscious of it is true. But I'm sorry,
a great strategy, yeah.
But it's just denial, it's just pride, isn't it? It's just, there's a lot of things we all want, the career and the job and all the rest of it, and then you get it, and then you're trapped.
Yeah.
Where are you, Roger?
I'm from Northern Ireland. You've probably picked that up from my accent. And but I live in Spain, and I've been 20 kilometers south of Barcelona for like 40 years, most of the 40 years in Barcelona, but now. And I met, I had the privilege of meeting Paul and John Van Donk on one occasion in a little town about 20 kilometers from the town where I was born and brought up and lived until I was about 20. Yeah, which is an interesting how things kind of intersect like that, So, but that was a great event. Yeah. And that was what introduced me to the kind of estuary phenomenon. And I've kind of been doing estuary-like meetings with people here, and have been for some time before the estuary protocol became a thing, But now I've used the protocol from time to time. I'm kind of protocol adjacent rather than.
So I don't really know what that means. What does that mean?
So what we did today was the estuary protocol with the pitch and the point. So how to organize the conversation. That's the estuary protocol. And so when we do an estuary meeting, basically what we did online is what we do in an estuary meeting in real life.
Okay, cool. All right. And do you notice much of a big difference in person to online?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. No, there's no substitute really for a fully embodied interaction, But yeah, it's great as a substitute, but it's not. It does. It ticks some of the boxes, but not all of them, because I do attend the ELS Estuary Leaders online event on ELSNet on Thursday. Well, in my case now it's like every month, once a month rather than twice a month. Yeah, but it's I recommend it if you haven't attended that yet, or if you're not familiar with it. But
I'm not against it. Yeah, it sounds cool.
Yeah, anyway, Paul will be able to give you more information about that. But
yeah, SJRF.com. So I don't know how, Scott, we started Jordan Peterson meetups in 2018. And John Van Donk and I were both doing that. And then we were helping other groups start. And then 2020, COVID hits. And we both noticed already Jordan Peterson drops out in 2019. And those conversations sort of bottomed out. And we wanted a broader conversation group that fulfilled some of what people were dealing with in terms of a lack of community and the meaning crisis, and a third space where people could have much more open conversations. And so Estuary grew out of that. And so there's this program, ElseNet, that Roger was referring to, where if someone wants to start a group, they can do this little online training thing with the group, which is just basically doing what we've done today, getting practice and sort of helping people pitch an idea, point to an idea, have the conversation. And so John Van Donk and I in 2022 went to Europe and sort of did this in a whole bunch of different places in the UK and the Netherlands and Germany. And I've been back a few times since then to do similar things, and just to help these little groups start, because, people need a place. And right now, a lot of people are struggling with having these conversations. It's interesting, Roger, you mentioned grandparenthood. We had so I do this every week at my church. And one week, the grandparent thing sort of one person mentioned that in our group. It just sort of went through the group. And that's what we had our conversation on that day, because it's something that isn't talked about enough, but is really important.
Yeah. I mean, the event that I was attending, it's part of an organization that has just arisen. It's called, well, you would understand the Spanish, Solo para Abuelos, only for grandparents. And it was really cool, bringing grandparents at different stages of grandparenthood together, and not specifically for church members. Some of them were kind of friends of members of the church, but not themselves involved in any kind of church life. But we all had in common the fact that we're wrestling with some aspects of grandparenthood. And yeah, it was good, and it kind of connected with the theme that I heard you talking about and that I've been thinking about. And I just thought that on that basis I would kind of chip in. And yeah, I don't want to kind of retain you guys, because you've been on this call for a very long time now. Paul, you'd probably appreciate a rest from.
Yeah, get a little break. But I'm glad. It's good to see you, Roger. I'm glad you were able to jump on. And I was sort of shutting things down, playing the branding, but I saw you pop on, and I very much wanted to get you on, and at least.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe I'll join again next week or the following.
Okay.
Yeah, or whatever, if that's possible, because I do listen. I'm a lurker. I listen to the conversations and find them very engaging, and it was good to have a chance to have a chat with you as well.
Yeah,
Scott.
It's always fun to have someone come out of the lurk and meet a new face. And we got this nice little rando at the beginning of the stream too, which I'm going to cut out and just place on the channel, just because everybody loves a good rando. And I'll have to do another speed rando again on a Friday one of these days, just to get more stories out there into the world. So
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. What time does the estuary start on the Friday, by the way?
10 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
So you'll have to do the conversion. So it's
so what time did you say?
10 a.m. Pacific.
10 a.m. Okay, 10 a.m. Pacific. I think it's 7 o'clock, I think, here.
All right. It's about it's 12:20 here. So you're about 7 hours.
Central European is 9 hours different.
9 hours.
Yeah.
So 10 a.m. Pacific. So that's when we do it.
Okay. I'll bear that in mind.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for allowing me to come on, even if only for a minute or two. And it was great to see you again, Paul. And I've been listening to avidly to your conversations and I'm very much a fan of your channel. So
it's great to see you again, Roger. I'll play a little bit of music that's from Ireland, and maybe you'll enjoy it. There we go.
Where are you here?
Oh, there I am. Hey.
Where are you? Here.
Got me?
Oh boy. Yeah. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Come on, man.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Yeah.
Walk with my mama.
Yeah, walk with my mama.
Walk with me.
Walk with me too.
You walk with my mama.
Yeah.
Walk with me.
And walk with me too.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
Want Jesus. Walk with me.
Walk with me. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. All along this Jesus journey. Hold my hand, Lord. And hold my hand.
Walk with Moses.
You walk with Moses.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
You walk with Moses. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
While I'm home.
Yeah. Jesus journey.
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus to walk with me.
Say, walk with me, Lord. How y'all doing? Walk
with me.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
Come on, I want Jesus.
I want Jesus
to walk with me.
to walk with me. Walk with David, a little shepherd boy. Yeah, you made him a great king. I know David shouted for joy. He walked with David, and he's a little shepherd boy. You made him a great king, and David shouted for joy.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. So walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. You gotta walk with me, Lord.
Yeah! That was rocking great, brother.
Oh, yeah.